In the world of astrophotography, it is extremely important that we can keep our telescopes pointed at exactly the same targets for hours and hours without end. This is usually done through what's called guiding, where a secondary camera is constantly monitoring what the telescope is seeing and making adjustments if small errors should occur. However, there are two main ways that you can get guiding on your telescope. You can either use what's called a guide scope, which is a secondary smaller telescope that you'd put on the side of it, or you can use what's called an off-axis guider. A guide scope is pretty easy to understand. Again, smaller telescope with a camera, put it on the side and you're done. An off-axis guider, however, is a small mirror that you put into the light path of your main telescope, and that siphons off a little bit of light that goes into the guide camera, and the guide camera is now able to go and take pictures and see what the main telescope is seeing without disturbing the main camera. And why can it do that? It can do that because telescopes will always have a round image circle, whereas the sensors on the cameras is likely going to be either rectangular or square in some cases. And that means there's going to be room at the top or at the sides where there's basically light that is not being used by the main sensor. And this is where your off-axis guider goes in and takes some of that light and uses it to guide. But what is the main differences between these two methods of guiding, and what is the pros and cons of them? Now, when it comes to using a guide scope, some of the main benefits of this is that it's very beginner friendly. It's a completely separate rig that has nothing to do with your main imaging rig, that you just put on the side. So this reduces the complexity, which we're going to talk more about later with the off-axis guider. And because that secondary telescope that you put on is often going to be smaller and have a shorter focal length, you're going to get a wider field of view than what you would do if you used an off-axis guider. And this means with a wider field of view, you have more stars to choose from to find some that are perfectly good for guiding. Because it's all too common for people using off-axis guiders that sometimes it can actually be difficult to find good stars to guide on, simply because your field of view is going to be so narrow. The biggest drawback from using a guide scope is what's called differential flexure, where because the secondary scope is just screwed on the side of the main scope, they can sometimes move ever so slightly. And what that means is if there is a slight bit of movement while you're guiding, then all of a sudden your computer thinks the telescope has moved while it hasn't actually. Then it's going to move the main scope, even though it wasn't actually necessary. So this can introduce error, and it can introduce inaccuracies in your guiding simply because it's not fixed rigidly, always not rigidly enough. I mean, often you would screw it in and you would feel like it's very, very rigid, but there will always be a little bit of movement. The second drawback of using this is we're attaching a full second telescope. That adds weight, and dependent on your telescope design, sometimes you can be lucky and you can get it aligned on top of it in line, so it's not so bad. But if you're unlucky, you're going to have to put your guide scope out on the side, maybe at a weird angle. And that suddenly makes the telescope a lot more difficult to balance if you're using a German equatorial mount, because now the weight is shifted all the way, not really going down the center of the telescope anymore. And that means then balancing it can be quite a chore and can actually be quite difficult. Now, when it comes to the benefits of using an off-axis guider, well, obviously it's a lot of the stuff that was the negative around the guide scope. An off-axis guider, of course, you're going to get more accuracy. It's going to be higher precision, both because you don't have that flexure, so you don't have issues with that. You do have a narrower field of view. While that means stars can sometimes be difficult to find, narrower field of view also means more accuracy, as your angular resolution per pixel is just going to be smaller, so you're going to be able to guide more accurately. A off-axis guider setup is often also lighter, as we're not putting a full telescope, but just putting a small adapter with a tiny mirror on it, so it's a lot lighter, reducing weight. And it's often also actually cheaper. Now, when it comes to the drawbacks of off-axis guiders, the main one is complexity. It can be quite complex to integrate an off-axis guider into your optical train. Problem here is, if you have a field flattener or a chroma corrector, you will know if you watch my video on back focus, there is a limited distance from that field flattener until the camera sensor in order for the main camera to reach correct back focus. Now, all of a sudden, we now have two cameras. We need to both have a correct back focus. Technically, it wouldn't be the end of the world if the guide camera is slightly off the perfect back focus, but ideally you should try to aim for it. But the problem is that off-axis guide bracket with a little mirror, that takes up optical path. And if you want to fit a filter wheel in there, maybe you want to fill the camera rotator as well, all of a sudden you're going to run out of optical path real quick, and you might not be able to get your imaging camera close enough to reach correct back focus. It adds some complexity, but this is a one-time thing, of course. Once everything is set up, ideally, it should be set and done, and you shouldn't need to touch it again. Now, there is technically one more option that I want to talk about, and that is the ZWO's new lineup of duo cameras. Now, if you haven't seen these are cameras, astro cameras, with a built-in off-axis little extra sensor. So instead of having a mirror that flips it out and then the cameras, it's now built into the camera. This means it doesn't take up optical paths as it's part of the camera. You're not going to worry about the two sensors being at different back focus because they're going to hit the same focal plane. It takes a lot of the complexity out of it, which on paper is great. However, I feel like there is a fatal flaw with this mechanism, and that is as soon as you begin to add filters into the mix. You see, your main camera, when you take pictures, you don't mind if you take 5 minutes, 10 minutes exposures if you're shooting narrow bands. That's quite common that you would do that, in fact. However, with the guide scope, you will often want to take maybe 1 second, 2 seconds, in my case, maybe even down to half a second. You're taking extremely short exposures. And that means, as we talked about already with an off-axis guider, you're already kind of constrained on the number of stars. And now all of a sudden, if you are now forced to shoot through a narrowband filter, you're going to be in trouble, because that means you're taking out so much light that you might not actually be able to see any stars at all to guide from. And this is one of the most fatal flaws in the design. Now, up until very recently, actually, ZWO has only added these duo cameras to their one-shot color sensors so that you would have a color camera. And in that situation, I could kind of see, okay, fair enough, that would kind of make sense, because when you're shooting with a color camera, the filters you would use would often be quite wide. It's unless you put like an Optilong L Extreme on, then you would probably get into trouble. But most of the filters you would use for color cameras, they are quite wide, and it's probably gonna be fine. But recently, ZWO also introduced a is it the 2600 mm Duo that they've now made, where there is this duo sensor on a double sensor stack on a mono camera. And that, I think that's a big mistake for a ZWO. I would not recommend this, because if you begin with a mono, you can of course use your RGB filters, that's going to be fine, they're wide. But as soon as you want to begin doing Hubble palettes and doing hydrogen alpha, sulfur, oxygen filters, that sensor is going to be so starved for light that you're going to have a hard time finding good guide stars to actually guide off of. Another thing to consider when we're talking about these duo cameras is the fact that because the sensor is now rigidly fixed to the camera, if you have a camera rotator on and you decide to make a field rotation and rotate the main camera, you've now also rotated your guide camera, and that means you need to recalibrate your whole guide setup. It's not the end of the world. It doesn't take long to do. It's just another thing you need to remember. My usual approach would always be to go through all the guiding, calibration, yada, yada, yada. And once everything is set up and everything is aligned and perfect and we're ready to go, then I would begin to look into what pictures I want to take and set my rotation. So it's just, you need to do things in a slightly unconventional order in order to make this work, but you can make it work. Finally, my recommendations. If you're new to the hobby, I would recommend you're probably going to start by looking at a guide scope, as it is the easiest one to get started with. If you're more experienced, I would probably say any telescope with a focal length less than 800, you're probably going to be fine. I mean, my wide field setup, that's 340 millimeters of focal length. I can get away with a quite small guide scope. As you get closer to that 800 millimeter of focal length mark, your guide scope also needs to increase in size. So for very wide setups, you can get away with the 120 millimeters. When you get up to closer to the 800, you probably want to get a guide scope of around 200 millimeters. And all these are standard sizes that pretty much every brand has. When you begin to move above the 800mm focal length scopes, we get out to these like high, medium to long telescopes, then I would recommend that you look at off-axis guiders, as it is going to give you a better result. And that is also what most people would recommend, is for the bigger scopes, off-axis guiders is just better, because again, that differential flexure, the bigger the focal length, the bigger of an issue that's going to be for you. So that's where you would probably consider moving over and using a off-axis guider. But I know that this has been a debate that's been going on for a very long time, and I would love to hear your guys' point of view in the comment section below, as I think it's an interesting and little nerdy topic, but I would love to hear what your views on this is. To do that, you get what's called a T-ring. The T-ring just slots in as if it were a lens. There we go, clicks in here. Over here we have a Williams Optics Uniguide. It's a 50mm aperture to 200mm focal length guide scope.